Hey everyone, quick video here. For the past few weeks, I've been a little cautious about the whole COPPA FTC situation on YouTube. In case you don't know, Google was caught selling targeted ads to children using their data without consent, and the Federal Trade Commission gave them a 9-figure fine of $170 million, leading to YouTube putting the responsibility on the creators. Again, leading to us being required to label our videos intended for kids or not intended for kids. If the video is labeled for kids, creators lose a lot of advantages, including but not limited to having the video not show up in notifications, not showing up in search, losing 90% of ad revenue, if they are making money, losing playlists, the community tab, and more. On top of this, the criteria that constitutes as safe for kids according to the FTC is, to put it charitably, vague. If content creators mislabel their videos, meaning if the video is labeled not suitable for children, but is, or even worse, willfully knowingly taking advantage of children and vice versa, the channel can face a fine of, and I quote, up to $42,530. This is set to be in effect on January 1st, 2020. When this was announced, this sparked a lot of fear and scary prospects for big established channels, and channels that were genuinely trying to make good children's content. But where do folks like me fit into this? Where do game developers who make devlogs or software tutorials fit into this law? I scheduled a meeting with an attorney earlier this week who was familiar with YouTube's history of machine learning and apathetic treatment towards creators. And I asked the attorney questions submitted by colleagues and viewers. Now, full disclosure though, when I met with the attorney, this was within the context of my channel specifically, where I mostly do devlogs and the occasional video about how to get started as a developer and the occasional gush of a certain game. So I can't guarantee all this information will apply to all game dev channels or any channel for that matter, and I'll get into all that later. I didn't see a lot of discussion about this within the game dev community, and I hope this can clear some fears. And some clarification is better than no clarification in this regard. With all this in mind, take what I say with a grain of salt, and let's get into the good news. To paraphrase my attorney, if they decide to sue you, I'll jump off the bridge. The FTC is a government organization that is currently short-staffed, and despite the $170 million from Google, employees won't be paid even above average. They won't have the resources to go after millions of channels at once, like YouTube usually does. More than likely, the FTC will pick and choose well-known, monetized channels to make an example out of. Mainly channels that overtly have a young audience in mind. My attorney brought examples like toy channels, nursery rhyme channels, channels with actual children on camera, etc. Generally speaking, as long as you aren't willfully masquerading as a kids channel with content not suitable for that age group and vice versa, you'll most likely avoid a lot of acrimony, especially if you're not monetized. With this in mind, it's safe to say that the majority of viewers under 13 aren't actively looking for software tutorials or in-depth documentation on a game's development. I say safe to say because a lot of this is a guessing game at the time of writing, as my attorney put it. Time will tell how strict this system will be, but there are a few other factors that could possibly help you in case the worst comes of it. In the FTC policy, it says, and I quote, up to when discussing the fine, implying that there's a process of factors that goes into determining how much the FTC will fine a channel. Unfortunately, we couldn't definitively figure out what those factors were, but if your content happens to appeal to a younger audience, and for whatever reason the FTC wants to fine you, there are some potential ways to mitigate the potential fines. Again, at least from what we could speculate. One thing I think might help is to put a disclosure on the channel's About page, explicitly explaining who your target audiences, or even putting it at the beginning of the video if you want to cover all your bases. If the FTC sees that and your content matches that description, they'll most likely have a harder time trying to fine you, and if you can prove it with your analytics, that'll probably help too. One thing my attorney said about my videos is my vocabulary, or technobabble. If your videos are heavy on multi-syllable words, programming terms, basically words that children are not likely to know without looking up a dictionary, that'll definitely help. Those are just some ways to help your case, but there are some things we couldn't find a way around, at least at the time of writing. Unfortunately, if you're doing a video, devlog, whatever on a game with childlike looking characters with a childlike style, the attorney brought up My Little Pony as an example, or related cartoons with a simple clip art kind of style. I couldn't bring up other examples with different art styles but are somewhat related due to needing context for each one, which is a huge problem for people who might be working on a game or making devlogs on a project that's more cartoony, especially since devlogs live on feedback and comments, which will be just shut down to fit the criteria. It doesn't guarantee immunity if the game has a less cartoonish style or something more angular. It's very vague. Again, if you're small and not monetized, you're less likely to be slapped with a stipulation. To reiterate, the advice I was given was for my channel specifically, so these range from preemptive measures to educated guesses. So what happens if these don't work? Unfortunately, there aren't a lot of alternatives. There are other places to jump ship to, like Vimeo and BitChute, but don't nearly have the reach and audience that YouTube has. The main thing I think creators should take away from this is that someone else's platform can be fickle. I'll be posting videos on my own website in addition to YouTube and notifying people via online mailing list. I'll still be posting to YouTube, but if YouTube becomes more trouble than it's worth, I'll at least have my progress somewhere. Before I close out, I need to do my YouTuber duty, as it were, and urge you to comment to the FTC, respectfully mind you, respectfully, to let them know of your concerns, ask questions, press for answers about the process, etc. Now this may be the skeptic in me talking, but considering that this has many parallels with the repeal to net neutrality that happened a couple years ago, both were announced in November, and the only way to contact the organization was through comments on their own website, I don't expect much change, but it's better than seething in private and doing nothing. I provided links to the FTC's COPPA law and the FTC comments system. Let me know what you think about all of this. That'll be it for this one. Have a good one.